And welcome back. Patricia watching Free Speech TV on DirecTV in Portage, Wisconsin. Patricia, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hey, guys. I read yesterday that there's going to be testimony today on the SHARE Act. And how much are we supposed to share? I mean, this is more power to the people that have always controlled our lands. Now, as I understand it, opening up millions of acres of former wilderness to roads and shooting ranges and trapping and killing our wildlife, which is already two-thirds gone on the planet. So I'm wondering what progress you think, or lack of progress, is going to be made on this. They've been pushing for this for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar with which committee and which House is even doing the hearing today. I apologize for that, Patricia. It's not on appropriations. That's the committee I serve on. But, I think if I can answer it slightly more generally, there's a lot of folks who are watching around executive orders, and especially things around the Antiquities Act and what could be slippery slope to try to sell off public lands. And I think that is something that we are watching very closely, and there's organizations around the country watching very closely. And we have to make sure that there's not backdoor attempts to sell off our public lands, especially in this current budget. If they're going to put $54 billion new into defense, cut everything else, and if they're trying to find revenue to then restore funding for things like the NIH, let's make sure that they don't try to then use this as a reason to try to fund something that's good and valid but never should have been cut in the first place. So I think on the front of watching those executive orders and Antiquities Act is especially important.
Mike in Kingsport, in Tennessee, watching Free Speech TV. Mike, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Thank you. If things go as we hope they do and Trump care dies in the Republican Congress, I hope the Democrats are working on some proposals to put forward to improve Obamacare. There's been a lot of talk about how Obamacare needs to be improved. I haven't heard anything specifically that is being planned to put that forward in the event that Trump care dies. Thank you.
Sure, Mike, and great questions. First, let me just say something that I want to say a little differently, because I'm not sure Trump care is going to die in the Congress. Right now, there are a lot of initiatives in the Senate to pass something very close to what the House passed. This is the urgent time to reach out to senators to make sure they don't pass anything close to what the House did, or else 23 million people will lose health insurance, and older Americans will pay 5 times more, and people on Medicaid are going to have cuts, and on and on and on, and you could have people with pre-existing conditions not getting coverage. So the fight, it's not as easy as saying it's going to die in Congress. I would say just the opposite. Right now, it's not even on life support anymore. It's active moving bill in the Senate. So let's keep that. That should be our focus. Secondarily, though, we've always said we know there are some problems that need to be fixed, but the bottom line is the fundamentals are there. 20 million people now have access to health insurance. If you have a pre-existing condition, you can now get health insurance, and we found a lot of people needed that. Women don't pay more than men. You don't have a lifetime cap. We actually were moving in the right direction, and there are things that we can absolutely do to fix it. But I don't want to lose focus on right now what's at jeopardy is that House bill could become law unless we stop it in the Senate now.
Yeah. Yep. And Casey in West Palm Beach, Florida. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, Congressman. Thank you for your service, pal.
Oh, thank you, Casey.
Yeah. Listen, I got a couple questions, actually.
Please pick one.
Basically from the Comey investigation and now the Sessions investigation, pretty much a lot of questions weren't answered because of back room where they can't talk about it except in the back room. Do we legitimately, any of these discussions with both of these investigations, do we have any leg to stand on for legitimate impeachment of Trump? And, or are we just going to have egg on our face?
Casey, a great question. This week, Brad Sherman said he's going to be dropping articles of impeachment. I think here's the real issue that we have to remember with anything around impeachment. Well, certainly if you look at the criteria, you could say I think he's done some of these things, from the emoluments clause to involvement perhaps with Russia and more that could come out. The problem is you don't have impeachment just because you've got some things to point to that you think are impeachable. You have to pass it through Congress, which is a Republican majority in the House and Senate. So we have to get to the point that we have such good, solid information that it's irrefutable and that we can get GOP support to do the right thing. And I think what we're trying to do is keep impeachment on the table, absolutely, that it's an option. We have to if we can't get answers, and if we find out there was collusion or, on the emoluments clause, if we find out that, there's some problems on that, we need to keep every option on the table, but we can't do it unless there's GOP support. So we have to really make sure we've got a case that you're taking in, just like a prosecutor. You don't take it to the court until you know you can win it. And I think that's what many of us who are very concerned about what's going on are doing. And I think we just have to keep aware that's how you actually have an impeachment occur.
Kathy in Concord, California. Hey, Kathy, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. I'm actually in Concord, North Carolina.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So we have our own little bag of tricks here in North Carolina. Yeah. Thank you for taking my call, Congressman. I just had a question. I have so many people, my dad included, who is very, very conservative, and they're kind of, coming this way a little bit. But they still have this argument that they use that Democrats are just as corrupt as Republicans, and money is just as involved in their situation and their decisions as the other side. And I think that's probably conservative news that has, pushed that narrative. But what do you say to that? I mean, what's the likelihood of getting money out of politics so that it's not such a factor and something that they can just keep going back to?
Yeah, well, and he's right on the fundamentals, right? Money is a corrupting influence regardless of your political party. However, I think what I would point to is what party is the party that has members signing on to constitutional amendments to get rid of Citizens United, on provisions to make sure that we protect voting rights, to make sure that we're taking money out of politics. There's only one political party doing that. That's the Democrats right now, and you can point to that, and I think that's the difference. So while I think you're right, Fox and everyone else wants to make everyone pregnant when, one side is 9 months and the other side maybe a couple weeks to a month. They want to, just make it even across the board. I have hope because I watch, right now John Sarbanes has got a number of us who are working with him on a task force that's all about, good government measures from campaign finance to ethics to voting rights. And we've got people like John Lewis here, and we've got all the leaders on the movement nationally are within the Democratic Party, and that's the difference. So while we may not be perfect with every single member and we have work to do, we certainly are the ones that trying to affect the change. And the grassroots are certainly there, and I think if we had the opportunity to be back in the majority, the grassroots can help us get these things done.
Yeah. Amen. Did you just say we have 1 minute left? Oh, we have 2 minutes left. Okay, we can take one more call here. Grace, we have 2 minutes to the end of the show, or the end of the hour, rather. Grace in Detroit, you got a quick question for Congressman Pocan?
Thank you, Congressman. Yes, what, if anything, is Congress doing to restore fair elections?
Yeah, and Grace, I think I might have just pointed to a little bit of it. I mean, we do have a number of provisions. We have a task force dealing with this. I don't anticipate this Congress under Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell doing anything to be helpful, but I think that's where we're fighting this, one, with the grassroots, groups like Move to Amend and United to Amend back home in Wisconsin, trying to address things like Citizens United and getting rid of that terrible decision. But we've got to fight for everything from campaign finance reform to voter integrity, to fighting, this. What we most recently saw was the Russians now hacking into multiple states' election systems and into companies that make voting machine systems. There's a lot we need to do, but there are bills out there. There are avenues for us to do this. There's groups nationally working on this, and I think this is one where, from the grassroots, we really can be effective and win on these issues.
Congressman, final thoughts for the week?
Final thoughts for the week. I mean, this is we're in the middle of the summer, what should be the appropriation season. I serve on the appropriations, Tom, so I think about that more than ever. They won't share with us what the allocations are for various areas. What that means is we'll be passing like defense and military budget bills first, leaving us with probably nothing left for things like Meals on Wheels and Special Olympics and after-school programs and Pell Grants and the National Institutes of Health research dollars. We have to keep an eye on that as well. There's a lot to fight right now. We're all, Russia gets a lot of attention, but this bad budget, health care going through the Senate, infrastructure package, the real need for one. We have to keep focused on all those, and I hope people keep an eye to those as well.
We have about 30 seconds. What's the status of the Congressional Progressive Caucus's budget that you guys laid out?
Yeah, we put it out so early, and they're still moving slowly on everything on the Republican side with theirs. But we've put out a different set of principles that show a people path forward. We've got 120,000 people have signed online supporting it. Over 70 major organizations. We drafted it with the outside organizations. This is a people's budget, and we're proud to put it out there to show the contrast.
Yeah, and that's, in my opinion, a really important thing to do. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us today.
Absolutely, Tom. Thank you.
Great talking with you. Congressman Mark Pocan, his website, pocan.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep, R-E-P, Mark Pocan, M-A-R-K, Pocan, P-O-C-A-N.